Electric Cafe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. This video is an album review on Kate Bush's 1989 album called The Sensual World. This is the second time that she's been featured on my channel. The first time I reviewed her debut album called The Kick Inside. I gave it a 58 out of 100. I thought it was a pretty good album. Um, I think that I kind of got some grief from a few comments on it. I actually got a couple of emails on it as well, and which I don't mind when people email me their opinions as long as they're nice about them and they give me their thoughts on why the score is what they would score is. Like I don't mind debating an album. I don't necessarily want to argue about my opinion with people. Like I wouldn't argue your opinion about music that you rate. I think that's kind of rude. I'm definitely one that has a strong opinion on things in general, and I certainly will give my opinion a lot of times, but I won't necessarily argue with somebody. I might make a comment about it, but I won't. I normally wouldn't argue as long as you can back up and articulate like the reasons why you like something, and I think that's important. Hopefully, I do a good job, a decent job with that in my channel because I want to be more Wordsworth and I want to be more in depth about why I like what I like and why I don't like what I don't like. And I think with Kick Inside, even though I got some grief from it, I still feel pretty strongly about the album being pretty good. I understand like Kate Bush is an icon and like it's there's some artists that you critique and people just have like, oh, why are you critiquing her, or why, like they're almost untouchable, like they didn't have any bad songs or they didn't have a bad album. The issue with Kate Bush on her first album is there's too many songs, first of all, so the cohesiveness isn't there. There's probably too many styles, and sort of it feels like because she's so young on that album, I don't know if this is a fact, but this is what it sounds like. It sounds like they've sort of put a band with her instead of giving her own opinion of what kind of band she'd want to be with, or as her style has evolved, what her sort of sound is. And I feel like on the first album, it's in 1978, and like it's like rock music is still really popular, so they don't really know what to put her with, and it doesn't seem like the instruments sort of fit her sound, and there's some guitar solos in there, and it just it just lacks kind of like a direction that really supports her unique voice. I feel like as her career went on, that did happen, especially with Hounds of Love. Also, Dreaming Again, I think was the album before, and then also this Sensual World, and even Ariel, the album Ariel in 2007. Another example of ones that fit her style, and so that's my thoughts on the first album. It's just the songs just don't fit her voice, and they don't sound like a very, I don't know. It just sounds like a house band, like a studio session bands. Studio members came in and played on her music. Like, hey, we need a guitar player. Come in and play on this girl's album. I think she has a really neat voice. Her name is Kate Bush. Come and play on it. It was like they recorded her at a studio, and they had these people around. They sort of fitted in her, and it doesn't necessarily fit her songs. And you compare that album with an album like this, and it's just like night and day for me. And it's not just because it's electronic music, which is why I'm featuring Kate Bush on my channel, because I feel like she's a better artist in electronic music than in soft rock or what have you. But she balances them, but I feel like she does better with more atmospheric, deeper, haunting, more melodic music than really soft rock. That's just my opinion. But I still think her debut album is a pretty good album, a 58 out of 100. But, compared to other albums, it's just no comparison. Um, the, the thing about this album is this is their sixth album in total, and her fourth. I'm sorry, 4 years since her breakout hit of Hounds of Love, especially here in America. You think of like 1985. You know, she was just coming off of Running Up That Hill and Cloud Bursting, and just amazing tracks, and really kind of getting noticed for the first time and really here in America. And then the next year later, she had Don't Give Up with Peter Gabriel, and that was a mega hit and a very, very highly regarded album that she was featured on. And I think that she did a couple other performances in that time, but probably lost a lot of the steam and and momentum that Hounds of Love uh, did for her career. And this came out far too late. 4 years after a hit is like 4 years in pop radio. Pop radio is like going from, you can imagine what was popular in 1985 and then going to like 1989. It's like Huey Lewis and Phil Collins and Madonna to like Poison and Def Leppard and Wilson Phillips, and you know what I mean, like In Vogue by like 89, 90. So just like, I mean, the styles of music in that time just traversed too far, and she got lost. And from an artistic perspective, this album is great, but as far as her success on the popular level was probably affected by that long drought. And it's sad that people think maybe that she's a one hit wonder, but everybody that likes a Kate Bush album likes multiple Kate Bush albums, and generally they like most, if not all, the albums, and that's certainly me. My least probably favorite was probably the first one that I reviewed, which was The Kick Inside. I think all the other albums are much higher scored. But yeah, I want to run real quick and review these, tell you why I like the tracks, and then we'll do an overall review. I don't think this video will be too much longer than 10 minutes total, so just a couple more minutes. Trying to get some of these videos under like 10, 15 minutes if I can do that on some of these ones that I don't have a ton to say, but I have something to say. The first track, well, actually, there's 10 tracks on here. The first track is the title track, The Sensual World. Love the warm electronic production on here. Her sensual voice works with the sensual world. Love the keyboards, the beat's nice. My fourth favorite track on the album at a 7.5. Love and Anger, the second track, very powerful, vocal, great piano. 7.25 track too, another really strong one. And then even better with The Fog, which is my third favorite track on the album. Her voice is so soft in here and tender, and I love her voice on a lot of the verses on this album, like The Sensual World and The Fog and Deeper Understanding. She's singing in such um, a softer feel, and it works great with the electronic music and the moody music. Like, this is where I feel like her voice really really works and it excels. And it has you kind of listening in for her, her certain ad libs or expressions and the way she uses her voice and stuff like this. There's just subtle things that she does really come out and really make the song. I mean, her performance in this album is fantastic in my opinion. Right on par with Hounds of Love in some respects, almost there, really. But just the beauty of The Fog just kind of sneaks up on you. It's my ideal. It's her ideal voice for me in the verses. And my third favorite track on here was 7.75 stars, right on the verge of an 8. Track number 4, Reaching Out, is my second least favorite on the album. It may be a little bit too direct. I think it's pretty good, and that's why I gave it 5.75 stars, because it's pretty good, but a little bit straightforward and maybe lacking in the depth of a lot of the songs on this album. But still a good song though. And then track number 5, Heads Were Dancing, 7.25 stars. Again, nice bass line, nice groove, lots going on in this track, and this is the kind of track that's maybe not a single, maybe not even a second tier song, but maybe a third tier song that kind of sneaks up on you and becomes one of your favorites. This is definitely a track that grows on you. There's a lot in this track to get into, that you'll get out of the more times you play it, because there's a lot going on in this track, and if you listen to it just once and don't play it multiple times, you'll kind of lose some changes and some unique instruments and a lot of good stuff on this song. It's just a kind of an underrated song, I feel like, on the album. And then my favorite track, Deeper Understanding. I love the electronic sounds on here. and the message and the lyrics. She's talking about being home and being in front of her computer and getting lost and losing touch with the outside world and being part of the synthetic and losing that touch of a human emotion. Like even back in 1989, she's writing about this. I just think that's so groundbreaking for the time, for a pop singer to do this, or somewhat pop. You know what I mean? But just an amazing, a deeper understanding of what's going on by having a deeper understanding of a tool that society and people use that can become so much more. And she had the understanding of that and just nailed it like in so many ways. Like just the way I press execute, instead of return or enter. I guess back in I was trying to rack my brain and remember if it was execute because like instead of enter or I think maybe was it even return, like the enter key, was it even return there for a little bit? But I do faintly remember execute. But that was sort of um, the programming at the time. I remember I was in. Thankfully, my parents got me into computers pretty early on, and I think like '84 or '85, we had an Apple. My father got us an Apple IIe, and we had the early drawing program. We had some early games. We had some early coloring, and like Sketchpad and all those kind of early Apple home computer like instruments. I mean, where we had like the mouse pad. It was actually like a pad, and you had and that was so you could do the coloring and the graphics program. And then I had some games and stuff like that. But also there were some other kind of computing things and also early computer games as well, like like official games. Like I remember I had the first Dreamcast. Was it Dreamcast or the first? It was called. Um, it was a boat game. It was on the water. It was one of the first. Oh, I'm blanking on the name now. It's a famous company that ended up making games and movies. I think it might have been DreamWorks, but I can't remember. It was like 80, 85 or 86. But anyways, I took computer class even in '87 when I was in seventh grade, and back then we were learning. Well, actually, even before that, we were learning like there was a program called Logo, and you could give it kind of codes, and it would draw things. And I remember we used to draw like the Gatorade, the Gator sign on Vision skateboards. That was like one of the things we used to draw. So basically, you would put in like go to 45, go to 43, and that was basically drawing angles. And then when you hit return, it would draw whatever you directed it to draw. It was like an early, guess, commanding language called Lotto or Logo or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, like in '86, '87, we started learning basic programming. And this song sort of reminds me of that because you would give it directions on how to run like the small program, and then I remember like making a game. So I made like a basketball game, and it was like, oh, if should you drive to the basket, press A. Should you shoot a jump shot, press B. And you would answer the question, and whatever you answered with, it would sort of go through the next step, then what happened, and then it would choose. You could choose what would happen next. It was kind of like almost like a choose your own adventure program, but it basically based on your decisions, it acted out what was already pre-programmed. So it was just like a basic programming that we did like in '87, '88 back in early program. But it reminds me, this track reminds me of a time when I would sit in front of the computer like late at night and just act like I was, breaking in some kind of code or secret code, or I was hacking into some sort of mainframe and trying to use these codes and syntax errors and sort of to get me into some sort of lost computer world. I think of like War Games, which was a great movie back in those days, and but just that feeling of being alone in front of a computer, and this song captures that feeling, that aloneness, and um, love the keyboards on here, the background vocals, the melody, the harmony, the guitar, piano. It sounds a little Eastern sounding, and I love the fade out at the end. Like it almost so these. It's a very synthetic track and very electronic track in some ways, and then you sort of hear some sort of harmonies, Eastern sounding, and then there's some sort of nature sounds, and sort of out of the synthetic world becomes a sort of organic world, and then it ends with like nature sounding, and you kind of come back to the real world. Just a fantastic song. Whoever programmed and did all this and talk about a pop track telling a story. It's just, I mean, just coming out of the computer age and getting lost in the computer and losing touch with reality and then coming out of it, and then the nature sounds come out. Just a fantastic song. I just always, especially as somebody who loves electronic music, I've always loved this track. And 8 1/4 stars, my favorite track on the album. Great track. Next track, track number 7, Between a Man and a Woman. I give this track a 6 3/4 stars too. It's right on the edge of very good. I do. This is probably the only critique I have for this album. This particular song, I wish they explored the groove here a little bit more. Made a little bit more melody on the song, and maybe a little bit more smoothness with the song, like the other songs are, and just really expanded upon it. It's really only 3.5 minutes, and there's a lot of good stuff going on, but it's really not delved into or taken advantage of. And so for that reason, I think if it did that, it would probably be close to 8s. I really like this track, but and there's really catchy, some catchy stuff going on this album, on this song, but it just doesn't really kind of get in deeper with it, which I kind of hope it would have. Now listening back on this, I first heard this album probably in like 19, somewhere in the mid 90s, 94, 95, or something like that. Then track number 8, Never Be Mine, is a very underrated track as well. Give it 7 stars. Very good track. And then track number 9, which is the only track I think is kind of a scar on the album. There's already two songs that sort of do an Eastern sort of vibe in the background vocals and deeper understanding, and then I think Sensual World might have had that, or maybe Love and Anger, maybe it was The Fog. There's quite a few songs in there that sort of have an Eastern sounding background vocals and stuff like that, and it's just this song doesn't, it goes to the extreme, and it's all about the extreme, and there's really no balance to it, and there's really nothing. I don't know. It just feels like it's like a track that's not needed. Like the album's already kind of done this, been there, done this. Like this song doesn't seem to be needed. It's I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's just it feels like after you got through so many really good songs, it's just this song just doesn't live up to it, and it feels like it's like an outlier of what they've already done, like a lesser version of it. And I give it 4 stars. I think it's okay. It's just and I probably only say it's okay because I don't dislike it. I like Kate Bush's voice in pretty much anything, so that's why it's okay. But I can't really say anything good about it, but I can't really say anything bad about it. It's just, it feels like it's already been done on the album, so it feels like a copycat. But there's nothing specifically bad about the song. It just feels like it's kind of been done before. It just feels unnecessary on the album, which is too bad because the rest of the album is really strong. And then this woman's work ends the album. Obviously, this one's a classic, 8 stars. I give it 8 out of 10. Great song, very emotional. Great video to it. If you've seen the video for it, very emotional, very powerful song. You think of all the crappy pop music out there in 1989, all the stupid, oversaturated, meaningless pop music, and then you have a song like this, and just such a powerful song. And Kate Bush just absolutely nails this song. I almost feel like I'm underrating this song, but for me, I do feel like it's a classic. But I can see other people like giving it a 9 and a 10. I wouldn't be mad if they said they called this track a 9 or a 10. To me, it's a classic still at an 8. I do wish it went on longer. It is nice and short and sweet at 3 minutes and 31 seconds, but I feel like it could go on a little bit more and enhance the sort of instrumental part of it and maybe even the emotion. But as it is such a powerful song. So yeah, I add up the stars and it's 69 and a half stars divided by 10, which is 69 and a half uh, rating. Funny enough, if I take out the song that's 4 stars and it's 65 and a half divided by 9, it's 72.7. And I think that's where I want to land the album, considering taking out that track, because I do give the album a couple additional points. I give it 3.5 additional points for the songs, the production, and Kate's amazing performance. Brought it back up to a 73. So I give it a 73 out of 100, right in the middle of a very good. Um, if there was another 8 in here, I'd probably be closer into the 76, 77, 78 range in the higher very good. And I think with another 8 in here, I think this album could be rivaling Hounds of Love is the best Kate Bush album of all time. Which this is off the top of my head here, so I still have to review the other albums, but I'm assuming that Hounds of Love is the best album. Maybe because I'm thinking of the higher songs and maybe not the lower points of the album. But this is a very consistent album. Only 2 songs under good. That I have under a 6 rating. Besides the one that's 6.75 is really close. I have 8. I have 7 of the 9 tracks above a 7. So 7 out of 9, very good. It was really strong. Besides that one scar on the album, that number 9 track, Rocket's Tail. Just don't understand that track on here. But other than that, really underrated album, I feel like, and also um, a really strong album in her career. And look, I went way past 20 minutes talking about my my love for Kate Bush's music and this album. Just a great album. Really strong. Love this album. 73 out of 100. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on this album, what you would score it, and what are your favorite 3 tracks. Mine are Deeper Understanding, This Woman's Work, and The Fog. Those are my 3 favorite tracks. All right, thanks for watching.
Electric Cafe.